And I am so pumped because we have one of the OGs, right, in the house. Chuck Brooks has been at this for a while, working for the government, some key pivotal roles in Washington, D.C., helping presidents and really helping shape the landscape of cybersecurity. So, Chuck, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome, 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 welcome. You know what time it is. You know what time it is, my friends. It is time. It is time for Life of a CISO with yours truly. Dr. E is in the house, and we're continuing our Life of a CISO series with some interviews with some key influencers and people that have really been in this field and understand what it means to be a Chief Information Security Officer. And I am so pumped because we have one of the OGs, right, in the house. Chuck Brooks has been at this for a while, working for the government, some key pivotal roles in Washington, D.C., helping presidents and really helping shape the landscape of cybersecurity. So, Chuck, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, I know I always like to give intros, but I always never give them justice. So, Chuck, can you maybe give a little background about sort of who you are, some of the things you've done, some of the presidents you've worked for?
I'd be happy to do that. I'm originally from Chicago, and I came out here, like most people, to Washington, D.C., thinking I'd be here for a short time, and I've been here permanently. But I went to University of Chicago for grad school, thought I'd go into a career in international relations, and I came to Washington, and I happened to encounter a interesting guy at a party who happened to be the former deputy director of CIA and head of DIA, General Danny Graham. And he asked me if I could write, and I said, yeah, sure I could write. He was promoting a thing called High Frontier, Strategic Defense of Ballistic Missiles, which is now actually being implemented in this administration. But we got to know, and they said, would you like to go into government? And, he introduced me to the president at the time, Ronald Reagan. I went to the lawn, met him. It was really great, a young kid and just really thinking about what was going on. And I ended up working over at the Voice of America as an assistant to the director of a guy named Richard Carlson. And he was great. And then I got picked up shortly after the presidential appointment ended to work on the Hill for almost a decade by the late Senator Arlen Specter. And that was really interesting because, we're just starting to get computers back then, and
Give us time for what year are we at now? Like, are we 1990? Like, what year?
The early 90s.
Early. So we're just, the web's starting to come up, right? We're just starting
to come up.
Yeah.
Finally, we had those little discs we put into the computer to carry stuff and shit.
Wait, what's a floppy disk?
Floppy disk.
Can you believe floppy disks are obsolete? It's like
obsolete stuff. It certainly had one of those things back then. But so I worked on. It gave me the technology and national security portfolio, and this is where I actually got sort of involved a little bit because we really didn't have the cybersecurity yet. But it was a really interesting time because you saw how things work in Washington, which I think it's important for anyone to understand, the give and the take and the lack of expertise of everyone around you. But so it's pretty interesting. And so, from there on, I got a call and said, would you like to be part of a startup? And the startup happened to be the Department of Homeland Security. And so Governor Ridge was the first director of it, secretary of it. And I went over there, and when I went over, it was really interesting because there wasn't much over there yet. It was just a bunch of buildings all over the place.
So when DHS was formed, you were there.
I was a plank holder. Yeah, I was.
Nice. That's awesome.
It was really exciting, and so I got to work mostly with Coast Guard and Secret Service people who were setting the stage for everything. And I said, they asked me where I'd like to be. Well, I said, well, I'm coming out of Congress, Senate, so legislative affairs would be interesting. And so I went over to help set up legislative affairs. And then they said, well, there's one directorate that's new that we're creating called the Science and Technology Directorate. And
nice.
Everything else was sort of taken from everywhere else.
Yeah.
But this was new. And I said, would you like to be the director of legislative affairs for that? And I said, sure. And this was really cool because it was all the emerging technologies, counterterrorism, chem, bio, rad, nuke, explosives, but also initially the first part of cybersecurity.
Oh, so
And
cyber was on the science and tech initially. Okay.
cyber was there. And
So this was before CISA, right? Before it was
this is
spin out?
before CISA, way before CISA.
Nice.
And interoperability was the main concern back
Yep.
then. They'd be able to talk to first responders, but also there was that protecting the networks was being contemplated early on. And my role, I also work with all the national labs from Oak Ridge to all the others, and so and all the Congress. They were sending in their inventions from everyone, and had a constituent that had something to do with counterterrorism. So I got sort of my feet wet, and I got a really big interest in cyber back then. And I was working with Doug Maughan, actually, who actually went out, is now I think with the National Science Foundation, who was heading up that cyber part at the time. And so we really did, and it started to get more and more of a cyber world. And then I left to support my family, get more money. Government doesn't pay that well, and I went to
I hear you, my friend. I hear you.
to SRA, which was at the time a $2 billion private company.
Nice.
That later bought by General Dynamics. So I made vice president of that, and it was an exciting time. Got to work really more and more with the cyber thing. Trained with a lot of the people there, and I did that for a while. And I'll just make it short because I can go in forever with a long career. But in the private side, I had careers with was being vice president of Homeland Security for Xerox.
Nice.
Actually, which Xerox is interesting because they really did help create the internet, along with DARPA and Vint Cerf way back when.
So it's like the Xerox Park area, like that research
the Xerox
group?
Park area, yeah, exactly. They created the mouse and everything else.
Yeah.
They gave everything away. They were only interested in printers. They're not really thinking about it. But and so also a company called Rapiscan was vice president of research and development, and also did their cyber, and they do the detection stuff at airports, and then later on, the culmination of my career in the private sector is with General Dynamics Mission Systems, where I was chief technology scout for cyber and other tech, but primarily cyber, to look where we could work with. And we work with the government mostly on those, pretty much exclusively the government in a lot of some classified programs. But so it was a real deep dip into the emergence of what technologies were coming online and all the challenges we're facing. Because the part of the role is what do we need to develop to offer to the government, and what gaps are there in cyber? What do we need to do? And there still are a million gaps, which I'll get to that. And at the same time, then I've been teaching now. I was teaching early on at Johns Hopkins Homeland Security, and I switched to the becoming the graduate cybersecurity risk management program at Georgetown for the last 9 years.
Yeah, so Georgetown, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been
super
teaching in
excited.
my
My son actually just got into Georgetown business, so I'm like, oh, we got some some Hoagies.
Yeah. Go Hoyas.
Hoyas. I always say Hoagies, Hoyas, right? I got to get that correct.
Yeah, it's great. So so working there, and I'm working with mostly practitioners in the program. So
Yep.
it was a great program. It was and I worked in risk management there, and I got to design my own course called Disruptive Technologies, which I still teach, and I ended up writing a book out of it called Inside Cyber: How Quantum AI, IoT are going to impact privacy and security.
Okay, so it's disruptive technologies, but it's really a cyber focus, like cyber quantum.
Totally cyber focus.
Nice.
How everything is connected, and the risk management models, a lot of the operational aspects too. The program covers a lot. So, but the students sort of like they get to do a lot of their own writing and research on this one, which is a good program. We have a lot of guest speakers. I'll have to have you now that I know you're local too.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to come by. Yeah, I'm 30 minutes away. I'd love to swing by.
Absolutely to do that. And so that's what I've been doing, and then been doing consulting and speaking after COVID. When COVID, I left General Dynamics and started doing my own thing virtually, and I've been speaking. Most of it was virtual speaking around the world, but now I actually been fortunate to go to a lot of countries. Italy 5 times now speaking. Worked a little bit with the Holy See, the embassy on cybersecurity. Worked in a variety of other countries. Been to Dubai twice. Going to Singapore soon. So it's a lot of fun. As you know, the world is really eclectic in the world of cyber and emerging tech, and everyone's friendly because we're all in the same place, and we all know there's a shortage of us, and we're needed, and the challenges keep growing. So it's not a competitive thing; it's a supportive kind of industry, which I say is different from others.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah,
that's what I think. Cybersecurity is it's not political, it's not country based. We're all in this together, right? We either win or lose together.
Exactly, and there's common language with everybody, and common experiences. and you're seeing a lot, more and more interest of bilateral cooperation with other countries, but also in the United States alone, because there's always changes, and you can't get away from it. I think the biggest challenge so far in sort of transitioning a little bit is it's just been always looked at as a cost item by most businesses here, and I think that's changed. Not enough yet, but it's changing. Where I think now most small medium businesses, certainly larger ones, now are looking at cyber as being integral to the success of the mission or success of the company, and without it, you're a sitting duck. And so I think that's where things have changed, and I think it's really great for new CISOs going into this world because they're going to be being equipped with more tools than most people had a decade ago, and less guessing because of AI. Knowing where some of the threats are and be able to recognize them quicker. I mean, it's a two-way street, but there's a lot more I think for CISOs, and I encourage my students, get a background in cyber, but also understand AI and quantum because they're going to be impacting the ecosystem pretty quickly, and they already are. So,
Yeah.
so they're found there.
Yeah, let's go there for a minute because I know everybody when they talk about cybersecurity, and I get this all the time to be a CISO, they're like, do I need a master's degree in cybersecurity and all this stuff? But what I love about your background is your education really wasn't in cyber. It was diversity, and to me that's really the thing. So can you sort of speak about the importance of having a
Yeah,
diverse background, that it's not just technical, that you have to sort of have that broader view?
I think so. I think the most important skills, usually in any kind of executive role, are the soft skills, right?
Yeah,
Be able to
bingo.
communicate. You could have all this technical knowledge and know stuff, but if you
Yep.
can't work with the people, and particularly the IT
Yeah.
shops, and understand them and be able to convey what they want to convey to the other people in the C-suite, and also get them on the same agenda, you're lost. So I think those kind of abilities are right. And you're right. A lot of my students now are, since they're graduate, are actually in government or industry, and a lot of them have certificates or technical backgrounds, so computer engineering and stuff like that. But they go for this course because they understand that the policies and the regulations and the compliance are just as much a part of cybersecurity as actually the technology.
Right.
And there's a lot of things to go through. I mean, you have to do that. You have to have processes, and I think the really most important part is understanding risk management. Because if you don't understand risk management in anything, particularly cybersecurity, you're just fooling around in the dark. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of that's also involves a lot of soft skills. You're dealing with resilience. You're dealing with particularly communications in those roles.
So let's pull on that string a little bit because, like a lot of people listening, they're in their careers 5, 10 years, and they have the technical skills down really, really well. How do you go in if, like, I'm currently working at a company, I'm a manager or director of cybersecurity. How do I build those soft skills? How do I get better at communication? Because I know in a lot of cases, I talk to these CISOs and they're like, the execs don't want to talk to me. They don't invite me to the meetings because we're not speaking the language. How do you improve that skill midstream without like having to go back to the 5th grade and repeat those courses?
Yeah. No, it is really basically networking. I think
Yeah.
in the past it's been mostly like you join a lot of the organizations like
Mhm.
AFCEA and others and CompTIA and whatever you're dealing with, and you network with people. But I think nowadays it's digital. Because since COVID, and that's a good thing because I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn, as I know
Yeah.
you are too,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you can see everyone's background, you can see their career paths, you can see their interests, and so I have my students. I'm pushing this too. That okay, you're out there, you're working as an analyst or whatever you're doing, but you need to write something and publish something on your profile.
Bingo. Bingo.
You need to show
You're a
this
brand.
is
You're a
my
brand. Yeah.
interest. You got to brand yourself.
You got
Exactly
to
right.
brand it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to know. So if the people above you know you have something to offer, and what's in your industry, what's interested, what they're interested in. Most of them are
Yeah.
national security roles, but what are the gaps in national security? Write something on that. How to be more efficient. How to optimize the network.
Yeah.
How to coordinate resilience because you're talking about resilience now a lot is really a buzzword now, but resilience involves a C-suite. It involves every manager. It involves the vice presidents, the president, the CEO. You're dealing with reputation. You're dealing with operations, and resilience starts with the cyber team. So I think that's another area to really be proactive on.
Yeah,
Uh,
I love that. And you just to emphasize sort of what Chuck's saying for our listeners is cybersecurity is not as big as we think, right? And we're not competing with each other, right? Everyone goes, oh, there's too many CISOs. No, there's not. But what you need to do is figure out your swim lane, Like, what is sort of going to be your unique angle? What's going to differentiate you from others? So don't just start publishing articles. That's a great start, but start figuring out what's your niche or area that you want to go after. And then, Chuck, I want to go back to something that I think you said, which is so critical, which is that security is sort of a business enabler. It's not a disabler, because most people think security are the people that say no. Security are the ones that get in the way. Like everyone, when they hear about security, like you're going to make our lives more difficult. But the reality is, if you look at security correctly, it actually increases profits, increases efficiency, increases cooperation. Can you sort of comment a little bit on how you and your roles as leaders in information security sort of support it being proactive and not a negative?
Yeah, no, I really do think that's, I think there's the C-suite starting to understand that. The most evident thing is something happens, it goes down, whether it's a misconfiguration or a cyber attack, the company's, down and out. The reputation is
Yep.
blemished, and they can't operate. And so that is the most important aspect of any company, right? To bring in revenues, to be able to do stuff. And there may be a lot of reasons for it. It could be a distributed denial of service attack on their website, or it could be, something like you just said, misconfiguration or an error, insider attack, everything. But to have the knowledge of the cyber person in there to be able to do that, basically gives them an insurance policy. And an insurance policy is to know that, there's a lot of things that could hit us, but we have the right resources and people that can advise us what to do. And then, it may be that you do a lot of pen testing and looking and
Yep.
see where your gaps are. And you should bring this to the C-suite and say, okay, well, we're operating in a new environment right now. If this happens, we're going to be it's the cost of the company are going to be X amount of money or more. And do we have insurance? No, or we do? Does it cover it? What do we need to do to plan? And then to get them involved again with resilience and stuff like that. And I think what is being more recognized now is that everyone is a target. It used to be that we're not. Why are they going to bother with me?
Yeah.
But since everything's digital, it's a real problem for any company. Every day, particularly in the health and financial and education, those three areas, they're targeted because mainly because of ransomware attacks, because they
Yep.
get money out of them. But that's the thing. I think you're bringing your value, and you also have to be able to communicate what the threats are now and why. I think people don't realize if you're on, selling something in a product landscape, you don't know who your buyer is and where the product's going to be used. But if you're operating a company, you have to know, okay, who are the threats out there from making us stop from being able to sell to our buyers. Is our supply chain risky? Do we have someone in there that's going to compromise us and put us in business? Do we know what's in our network? Do we have the zero trust? I think, which is being permeated all through government, is now going down to the private sector, even the small and medium business, because you got to know who has connectivity, access, what devices are there. That's the basics. And the other thing I think is that the most CISOs can actually, and they need to do more of this, is teach cyber hygiene. Because a lot of this stuff is just
Thank you.
basic.
Thank you for saying.
Yeah, it's just basic. I mean, you have multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
If you
How you do
don't,
one thing is how you do everything. Yep.
yeah, yeah, I mean, everyone could get victimized by a fish, but there's,
Yeah.
what are you clicking on? What do you have to look for before you click on? Do you have are you using your network, your laptop in an open network, or is it encrypted? Do you have backup? All that kind of stuff is really interesting to know if you're an employee, because you want to do what's best for the company, and you want to see where you can go, and particularly for the leaders at the top. So I think you make yourself really valuable when you put it on their terms, because cyber hygiene is not about technology; it's just about doing the right things and strong passwords too. I mean, all that helps. Bottom line is, you don't want to make yourself the low hanging fruit. You want to make it
Yep.
so they'll go somewhere else if they have to.
Yeah, and two great points. The first one is I love, are you adding value? Like everyone thinks a CISO is about cybersecurity. It's really not. As a CISO or even anybody working in cybersecurity, are you adding value to the organization? Because here's the reality. If executives don't want to talk to you, if you're not invited into the boardroom, it's because you're not adding value. If you added value to growing and expanding the business, you would be in every single meeting. So you want to make sure you're really focused on the value piece. And then the other important thing, Chuck, that you say that I love, which is something I preach, is stop trying to secure the organization. And what if you focused on helping each employee secure their life, like
Yeah,
secure their family? Because if
yeah,
you can get them, because people will be engaged a lot more if you put their family at risk or their kids at risk than the company. And if they're practicing good practices at home, they're going to bring it to the office. So let's start sort of grassroots and get individuals to really start protecting themselves. The other thing I want to comment on, because it's one that I think it's an important concept, but it sort of turned into a buzzword and almost has gotten numb, is sort of zero trust. Like, what is, like, let's throw away the label. What does really zero trust mean to you? And like, what are the top 2 or 3 things if somebody's really trying to get zero trust in a commercial environment that you think they need to focus on?
Yeah. Well, I think it sort of is a wake up call for us from SolarWinds when we realize that there's all these bad guys
Yeah.
laterally in our networks. So I think you when you're talking about zero trust is you're going to see, okay, I have what employees have access where and how and when, and have they left? Have they been, they still have access? I mean, if you're a business, you want to know that there's always, people stealing stuff, happens a lot, and you have to know that. Also, what devices are they using? IoT devices? Are they using their, how many laptops and phones do they have on that? And then also, because your network can be contaminated too. Are they following the right protocols? So that's all. I think is all important, and you have to know, where everything is. And it's really sort of basic. It's like doing, inventory. When you're starting a
Yeah.
business, okay, what do I have here? Assets do I have? For zero trust, and okay, here's all my employees. This is what access and identity management they have, or who's the administrator when someone's gone, or who's the administrator. A whole process and all the devices. So I think that's really important for a CISO to know. And then you could look at, okay, where are our gaps for zero trust? Do we have are we operating on personal devices? Our business and personal, is there a mix there? We could do protocols, or you may do segmentation. So there's a lot of things you can do to sort of ensure zero trust. And I think, it really is just basically awareness of what you have
Yeah.
and what you need. And so I think that's really important. And of course, we've been traditionally going with defense in depth. Most companies where you just bolt on a lot of security products, endpoint devices and such. But you know what? The problem is that you don't necessarily know how to orchestrate them. Particularly when a lot of people leave. When your CISO administrator leaves, the next person comes in, doesn't even know how they're connected or what's using it. So in a lot of companies, and also it opens a lot of vulnerabilities too. So I think because that goes into a different era. I mean, with AI, it can search for those vulnerabilities. So I think now with the zero trust, you almost have to revisit your defense in depth. What you have bolted on to a lot of these products, and what your licenses are, and what you're doing, what's redundant, what you need and don't have. I mean, and that's the other thing. So that's more of a CISO role
Yeah.
to look at that area. But it's all part of risk management.
Exactly. Strategy, and risk. And one of the things I always love people thinking about is the average person at your company probably has at least 3 devices.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have a company laptop, they have their cell phone and probably an iPad, and your corporate data is on all 3. Do the math. Like you have 500 employees, you multiply. I mean, it becomes a huge, huge issue. And one thing I bring up, and I love your thoughts on, is you look around the world and like Russia periodically like disconnects from the internet for 24 hours. We saw in the Iran conflict, they disconnected from the internet to control and protect their assets. And one thing I always ask companies is, if you had to disconnect from the internet, like if you were under a massive attack and you had to disconnect from the internet, could you do that? Like, do you know all the connectivity points? How important do you think that is to really know your egress, ingress points and really be able to control and manage those a lot better than most companies do?
Oh, I think that's really essential.
Yep.
Particularly if you're in an area like biotech or pharmacy too, where a lot of these ones that are getting hit, because they have to be able to operate. Otherwise, everything or the other vendors go down, and this deals with the issues of health. So I think depend upon the industry, there's some more important than others, but I think it's important for everybody to know where to turn off and what
Yeah.
you need to turn off. Because also by exploring that, you'll know what to turn on too, and what you don't
Mhm.
need to turn on. So
Yeah.
I think and then going back to the shutting down, you need a backup sometimes, particularly where you can switch. With the cloud, you can do that a lot, and you can have a whole backup system, particularly if you're dealing with personnel in your operations and things like that, where you need to have them in your financials. So it's a lot of companies are having redundancy, and redundancy could be helpful sometimes for that too. Although, with the lack of really a good cybersecurity people and stuff like that, that's more of a rarity. I think larger the big companies do it, but the small and mediums don't even get the basics for the first one. So, I think it's going to be a learning curve for a lot of companies.
Yeah. And you sort of talked about resiliency. And one of the other things I push a lot is small, medium, and even larger companies is even though there are security risks, is moving to the cloud is probably a lot better than running your own servers and systems. What is your thoughts of like, if we look at the next 3 or 5 years, is really the company of the future going to be all cloud based with no data centers or servers owned by the company? Or where do you think sort of private servers and colo facilities fit into that?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be a hybrid mix, but
Hybrid, yep.
mostly in the cloud. Some companies, just want to hold on to their data,
Yeah.
for whatever it is. A lot of governments like that too with the legacy systems. So you have to change the mindset. But cloud is certainly, it is more secure despite what people think, even though your data may
Yep.
be collated, but it could be encrypted.
Yeah.
You're dealing with companies like Microsoft and Google that protect the Department of Defense. So I mean, they have ways of protecting the cloud. I mean, it depends what you do, but I think it's you're always subject to any kind of risk of a breach, but I think less so in the cloud nowadays. And it's also much easier to operate, because you don't really necessarily have all the things you have to do and all the patching. They could automate it up there and stuff that you would have to do here on prem. So I think it makes a lot more sense for medium and small, particularly to do that because they can't manage their security as it is,
Right.
and it's another element, and it makes them much more secure.
So if you look at that sort of the evolving role of security and a CISO, if you go back, like even we go back to when both of us started our careers, like in the 90s and the 80s and stuff, security was really about like setting up firewalls, rule sets, patching, a lot more technical. But what I'm sort of seeing and would love your thoughts is as we move to the cloud, and those systems are being patched and monitored and configured and tracked by third parties, is cybersecurity really turning more into like a policy strategic role and less technical, or like for skills of the future, are the technical skills still important, or is it better to really focus more on the high level strategy, organization, and risk management?
I really think it's a mix. I mean, I think
Okay.
you have to understand. I mean, like people are saying that coding is going to be obsolete because of AI. It's automatically doing it, and software engineers are going to be. But I think to understand, the basics of things, you need to have at least a basic technical understanding of how things work.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. A lot of this is going to be automated by cloud providers, CASBs and others. Just being able to take away the problems that are associated with running stuff. But you're still going to need people that have an understanding of the newer threats too. I mean, because it's not all in the cloud. Particularly if you're in operational and manufacturing,
Oh
operational
yeah, so you're
cloud,
gonna have you
yeah,
have to have
it's not going to be in the
machinery,
cloud.
robots. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's going to be all kinds of robots
Yeah.
now. I mean, they're already coming in line,
Yeah.
and that's going to take some expertise too, and the data centers and all these other things you're dealing with. There's still a lot of elements you have to understand, and then of course with the AI sort of taking over everything right now, you have to understand what the uses and the challenges are of AI too for cybersecurity, and that's going to be somewhat of a technical, but also of a policy, because a lot of it's going to be following policy and safeguards that are in those policies. And so I think it's good a combination. It's always good to have a technical background,
Yeah.
and it's still very important now to look at. I think it's a mix. You have to have the policy too, policy understand the implications and seeing what's down the line because things are changing so fast. What worked even last year may not work next year.
Yep. Yeah. And to me, yeah, artificial intelligence, I mean, that's sort of the buzzword. And sort of when people ask me about it, I say, I think AI is one of the biggest blessings, but the path we're on, it's a current curse because I think we're over reliant on AI. To me, AI is a tool, it's not a substitute for humans. So, like when I hear executives say, oh, it's going to replace your job, I'm like, no, you can't replace humans, right? It can enhance. We should look at it. It should enhance your job, not replace it. But from what you're seeing as a CISO, what are some things we should be focusing on with AI to make sure we're embracing it and not fighting it for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think you said exactly right. Any technology is a tool for the human,
Mhm.
and with AI has been around for a long time. It's just really sort of in the last couple of years because of generative AI and when ChatGPT came on board, everything jumped into it. But it's changing everything largely because the generations below are all using it for everything, probably overusing it, like you said. But generative AI, it does pose problems because it sometimes lacks context. It's not sentient, and you need a human to be able to in the loop. There's no doubt about it. And it's not perfect either, but it can be used as to augment things. Like for instance, if you're an analyst and you would need to write a report that would take 3-4 days to write, you can write it in literally an hour with the help of AI and stuff. It also is good at noticing anomalies in your network. Whether so you hopefully will alleviate false positives and reporting if you're a security operations center. And it also is good for right now for threat detection. For that same reason, going out and seeing what's in the data that's out there. But of course, you're relying on data that can be poisoned. You're dealing with large language models, and nothing's pure. So I mean, without having a context of a human knew it, and then everything makes mistakes. It could be that the AI was programmed wrong. I mean, so there's a lot of or didn't come across this situation, and that it's something new that it didn't know how to react to. But then you have now the agentic AI also coming on board, which is more I see is more of a tool for humans because it goes out there. You don't need to prompt it, and it goes out there and brings you information. But again, that information could be incorrect. So I think but it does bring if you want replicate 50 CISOs and what they would do in this situation with agents, and they could bring it to you, but you still have to decide what the best because two CISOs may have three different views. So it's just the way it is, and nothing is really that concrete when it comes to digital or life.
No, we are so similar because that's what I said. If I was a competitor of a company today, I wouldn't try to break in. What I would try to do is pollute their data set for their AI, so they're giving inferior services to their customer. And then to me, the ransomware attack of the future is I'm not going to go in and steal your data. I'm going to corrupt your data. And then unless you pay the ransom, I'm not going to clean it up. Because remember, it's one of those things is I don't need to drain the water from the pool. I just need to put some pollution in that water. And, a few drops of a red dye in a glass of water can make the whole thing pink and red pretty quick. So it's really about protecting and controlling the data sets and not really protecting and controlling the AI. We're running out of time, and I hope you'll come back.
Oh, absolutely.
But Chuck, I'll give you the sort of the last note. What's sort of some parting advice you have to our audience of up and coming CISOs or CISOs on what's one or two things you wish somebody told you when you were starting off your career?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think is get a mentor, get advice from people who've been through it. It helps in any kind of career you're in, and understand it. Second thing is, I get involved and read. There's a lot of when we were starting, there wasn't much out there in terms of information. You had to really go to something to find out about it. But you can go down to LinkedIn or a million other places and get information from experts and experiences and analysis. So take use of that analysis and information that's out there, and build on it and learn from it. And then also be proactive. Be proactive in branding and promoting yourself, and looking at what being a CISO is now almost in a lot of C-suites now. It's an important element, and you want to go for that. But there's also a lot of other tasks involved with cybersecurity. And the other thing I'd say is that learn about AI and the challenges and it possesses and the benefits it does, and look at now what's happening down with quantum coming in the pipeline, because encryption is certainly going to be something that's essential to understand more and more in protecting the data, as you said, because our identities are being spoofed so easily. We really need to have some sort of a way of going forward to understand how we can protect ourselves better.
Yep. I love it. Chuck, it's truly been a pleasure. And I hope you were serious, because I'd love to come down to Georgetown, take you to dinner, and, maybe talk to your students. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to Life of a CISO. Please join us and post your comments below. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of great positive comments. And Chuck, I hope you'll join us in the future, because I'd love to have you back on the show.
I'd love to come back on.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for listening to Life of a CISO.